I would remind everyone in the community that the open hearing on the university's tuition fees and housing and dining charges for the 2021-2022 year will be held on Wednesday, April 28th via Zoom from 6 to 8 p.m. The open hearing website is live, and members of the university community can register to speak at the hearing or submit comments to the board. As always, the comments will be compiled and shared with the university administration and board members to review prior to the virtual open hearing. And the hearing will be presided over by the chair of the Committee on Finance and Facilities and the chair of the Committee on Academic and Student Affairs, as always. And with that, President Holloway, would you address us, please?
I believe so. Thank you. As I like to do when I talk with the Board of Governors public session, and certainly with the University Senate, I'd like to start with highlighting great accomplishments of our students and our faculty. We have wonderful news about students. We have two Goldwater scholars, pardon me, in our student population, Tai Wai Hu and Arts and Sciences in New Brunswick, and Jackie Mayer in SEBS. Apologies to them if I mispronounced their names. We have at this point 5 Fulbrights and expect more. This takes us halfway to becoming a top producer of Fulbrights for the 13th straight year. I'm confident we'll be achieving that goal. We have Fulbrighters heading to Taiwan, Finland, Spain, and 2 of them to Turkey thus far. The faculty honors, I'm pleased to report that Professor Seth Coven, excuse me, in Arts and Sciences in New Brunswick has been awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship. Elise Bodie in Rutgers Law School in Newark has been appointed by President Biden to the Presidential Commission on the Supreme Court. 2 faculty members won National Book Critics Circle Awards recently, Kathy Park Hong in Arts and Sciences in Newark for autobiography, and Nicole Fleetwood in Arts and Sciences New Brunswick for criticism. Finally, Nancy Sinkoff, Arts and Sciences New Brunswick, recently won the National Jewish Book Award in the category of biography. My congratulations to the students. As I like to say, their brilliance shines a reflective bright light back upon Rutgers. Some updates. As I expect all of you know, on March 25th, we announced that we would require vaccinations for students. This will be required for those coming to campus, and we'll be requiring students coming to campus to be vaccinated and show proof of vaccination. There will be exemptions for medical and religious reasons, just as we do with other inoculations. This requirement is for in-person courses and for housing. And this will mean, the net result is that our students, when they come to campus, will be safe against COVID-19. This is our best bet to make sure we have the safest possible campus. President Biden's announcement that there would be enough vaccine for all adults by the end of May is what facilitated this decision. Granted, we know that Johnson & Johnson halted distribution of the vaccine yesterday, ironically the day after I got a Johnson & Johnson vaccination. Ironic just for me, I suppose. But we still have great confidence that there will be enough vaccine of all different types available throughout the country late spring into summer that we'll be able to proceed forward with this plan. Our announcement, when it came out, drew national attention. Tony Calcado was the face and voice of Rutgers for about 48 hours and did a remarkably fine job in that regard. I had the honor of sitting down with CBS reporter Meg Oliver for CBS This Morning segment that aired today, again about vaccinations. Other universities have been looking at us. I know John Hoffman has fielded calls from at least 40 different general counsel's office. I've received text and emails and phone calls from presidents at other universities, all wanting to know how we managed to do this. We managed to do it because of the way that New Jersey regulatory environment and statutory environment is structured. I won't go down in the weeds here on that point. But the fact is we feel very comfortable in this determination from a legal standpoint and from an ethical standpoint, and other universities are joining on. Many more are wanting to know how, as I just mentioned, but now we've had over a dozen who have extended that requirement to their own student body, including Cornell and Brown universities. Union negotiations. I'm very pleased to report that we were able to ratify fiscal emergency settlements to avoid going to arbitration. I want to thank both sides of this equation, management and union, for finding ways to reach an agreement that is in the best interest of the university and the best interest of the employees. I think we arrived at that place. Any benefits agreed to will be applied to other non-union employees in the spirit of being as equitable as we possibly can to everybody on our campus. The last thing I'll say by matter of update is that we are getting very close on selecting and naming the next chancellor for Rutgers Camden. The search for a senior vice president for research is now in the late stages. If I had to guess, we'll be wrapping that up in the next couple of weeks. And as you know, we'll be launching the search for the next president of the Rutgers Foundation very shortly. And that concludes my update. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Crateville, the floor is yours for 2 minutes, sir. Kim, is Mr. Crateville with us?
Hello.
There he is. I just unmuted him.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Charles Crateville. I'm the editor of New Brunswick Today, a community newspaper available online at newbrunswicktoday.com, and an alumnus of the university. I must say I'm disappointed in the lack of transparency regarding your agenda item nomination to the Camden board. I would respectfully submit that when a board nominates someone to a position of power, it's a best practice to name the person. And there's no name on your agenda. I did inquire this morning with your secretary and did not get a response. So if I may, is it true that the nomination will go to Mr. William Tambusi? Just want to be clear, the board's not going to tell the public who they're appointing? Well, I guess I'll just say that universities are supposed to be places of independent thought and not free from political influence. But of course, here at Rutgers, we deserve so much better. Transparency needs to be improved. I think that I'm concerned about a particular case Mr. Tambusi is involved in, where he represented the Donald Trump and tried to suppress reporting about Donald Trump before he was the president of the United States and the worst president in the history of our country. And I'm concerned about him, Mr. Tambusi, that is being appointed to an additional position of power. And I just wanted to put all that on the record and say that the university needs to really improve. No one has addressed the removal of the students from Lincoln Annex School. No one has addressed the role that the university is playing in voter suppression here in New Brunswick by refusing to respond to inquiries from the city clerk and New Brunswick Today regarding the use of university buildings as polling places for the election. And what's going on has got to stop. We need to practice what we preach and actually put people first, and the university's not doing that. You need to at the very least be transparent with us about what you're doing, and that's just not happening. So I hope that you can answer questions such as, who are you appointing to the Rutgers Camden board?
Mr. Crateville, your 2 minutes is up.
Please answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crateville. President Holloway, would you like to make any remarks at this point? I will ask you again at the end of the meeting.
No substantive remarks. I would just say to future people signing up for this session, it's not a for public comment, it's a comment session, not a question and answer session. And we are not trying to be anything but transparent in the work that we do, but we will follow the actual rules of our own sessions. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I would add that it is one of the great privileges of my professional life to serve on this board with Bill Tambusi. That's all I have to say about that. Moving on. Mr. Hundley, the Committee on Academic and Student Affairs, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Committee on Academic and Student Affairs met on March 31st, 2021. The meeting was held virtually via Zoom. The meeting was called to order at 1:00 p.m. First on the agenda item was Rutgers Business School graduate programs in Newark and New Brunswick, where Chancellor Nancy Cantor reviewed a change to the total credit requirements for the Master of Science in Supply Chain Analytics program offered by the Rutgers Business School from 36 to 33 as a result of curriculum revision. She noted that the changes to the curriculum have enhanced the course offering in analytics to meet the trends and market needs in supply chain analytics and to also have given more flexibility in course selection. Next on the agenda was the School of Business Camden, where Interim Chancellor Margaret Marsh explained that the School of Business Camden is changing the total credit requirements for the Master of Business Administration degree program from 57 to 52, again, as a result of curriculum revision. She noted that this change allows the business school to keep up with competitors and aligns with trends in MBA education. She added that significant curriculum revisions accompanied this credit change. Interim Chancellor March then reviewed two new offerings for standalone graduate certificate in accounting analytics and forensic science accounting. She explained that each 12-credit certificate will require 4 3-credit courses and that the programs will be offered online. Next on the agenda was the School of Graduate Studies when Dr. Christopher Malloy, Chancellor of Rutgers, New Brunswick, presented the last item for information and reviewed 2 new standalone certificate offerings in the School of Graduate Studies, including a graduate certificate in business innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, and commercialization, which will require 12 to 14 credits, and a graduate certificate in community college leadership, which will require 4 3-credit courses. The committee then moved into executive session where Dr. Prabhas Mogi explained the role of the committee and board in faculty personnel actions involving appointment and promotion to and within the tenured ranks. The board then discussed personnel matters, which included faculty promotion and tenured appointment recommendations. The committee agreed to endorse those recommendations for board approval, and they have been placed on today's consent agenda. The committee then discussed honorary degrees and commencement speakers at Rutgers Newark and Rutgers New Brunswick. On behalf of the Committee on Academic Student Affairs, I have the pleasure of presenting for the board's approval the following candidates for the award of honorary degrees and to be named as commencement speakers in May 2021. Beginning with Rutgers University Newark, I would like to present Mr. Wendell Pierce for an honorary Doctor of Fine Arts degree and to be named commencement speaker for May 2021. Mr. Pierce was born into humble circumstances in New Orleans and gained the opportunity to develop his prodigious talent as an actor through education. Throughout his career, he has used his talent to draw the attention to the pressing issues of urban America and most famously through his work on The Wire, one of the most acclaimed shows in television history, and the inspiration for both a recurring and lecture series at Rutgers Newark. Next, I would like to present Dr. Robert Paris Moses for an honorary Doctor of Laws degree. Dr. Moses is an educator and civil rights leader who rose rapidly to one of the most important civil rights efforts of the early 1960s, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee's Mississippi Voter. Dr. Moses also co-directed the Council of Federated Organizations and was a lead organizer for the 1964 Mississippi Freedom Summer Project. After winning the MacArthur Foundation Fellowship, he used his fellowship to begin the Algebra Project, which uses mathematics as an organizing tool for quality education for all children in America. The Algebra Project has helped thousands of middle and high school students who previously performed in the lowest quartile on standardized exams to graduate high school on time in 4 years, prepared to take college level math. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Hundley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution, please so signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? The meeting carries. The resolution carries. Thank you very much.
I'm not done.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I would now like to present the candidates for award of honorary degrees and commencement speaker in May 2021 for Rutgers, New Brunswick. First, I would like to present Ms. Natasha Trethewey for an honorary Doctorate of Letters to deliver the commencement address at the May 2021 University commencements. Ms. Trethewey is a Pulitzer Prize winning poet and former United States Poet Laureate and Poet Laureate for the state of Mississippi. Her most recent book, Memorial Drive in 2020, became an instant New York Times bestseller and received numerous accolades. Ms. Trethewey authored 5 collections of poetry focusing on the intersections and contentions between public and personal history, national memorialization, and forgetting, and the fraught legacy of race in America. Seamlessly blending individual and collective experience from the Civil War to civil rights, Ms. Trethewey's work illuminates the history of American trauma and resilience. Next, I would like to present Ms. Lori Garrett for the award of an honorary Doctor of Science at the May 2021 University commencement. Ms. Garrett was recently named the Prophet of the Pandemic by the New York Times, is the only writer to have been awarded all 3 of the big P's of journalism, the Peabody, the Polk twice, and the Pulitzer. Ms. Garrett is a supreme example of knowledge-based journalism using her background in immunology to research and investigate the causes and trajectories of infectious diseases, and writing about her findings to educate the citizenry and ultimately influence policy. I would like to present Dr. Rush D. Holt for the award of an honorary degree of laws at the May 2021 University commencement. Dr. Holt served as United States Representative for the 12th Congressional District of New Jersey from 1999 to 2015, and subsequently as Chief Executive Officer of the American Association for the Advancement of Science from 2015 to 2019. As a representative for the 12th District of New Jersey, Dr. Holt served with passion, lending his scientific knowledge, intellectual curiosity, and genuine concern to a wide range of issues such as environmental conservation, election security, education, and access to healthcare. Finally, I would like to present Ms. Gwendolyn Willow Wilson for the award of an honorary Doctorate of Letters at the May 2021 University commencement. G. Willow Wilson is a New Jersey native and comics writer, prose author, essayist, and journalist. Ms. Wilson is the author of 3 books, a graphic novel, and mini comic book series. Ms. Wilson is also the co-creator of the Marvel character Kamala Khan, a teenager in Jersey City, New Jersey, who took on the mantle of Miss Marvel after the previous Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, became Captain Marvel. Kamala Khan provides a positive depiction of a young Muslim American female living in New Jersey, as her friends are as diverse as the state of New Jersey, and her core values, struggles, emotions, and opinions are realistic and resonate with her readers. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Hundley. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Resolution is approved. Thank you very much. We move on now to Mr. Banks for the Committee on Finance and Facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Committee on Finance and Facilities met on April 1st, 2021, virtually via Zoom. Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer Antonio Calcado presented for endorsement a resolution authorizing negotiation and execution of an easement agreement with Middlesex County and the City of New Brunswick. Rutgers owns a sidewalk traversing between Livingston Avenue and Bayard Street, adjacent to the Civic Square building at 33 Livingston Avenue. The proposed easement would allow use of the traverse for modernized egress routes from the State Theater, as well as allowing the addition of an elevator to the theater. Mr. Chair, I move the resolution in the meeting materials.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution is passed. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Banks.
Chair. I'll continue. Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer Michael Gower presented for endorsement a resolution adopting University Policy 40.2.24, which is leasing of real estate. The policy codifies the existing practices used for review and approval of real estate leases and adds a review by the Board of Governors through its Committee on Finance and Facilities for leases with a net value greater than $5 million. This is on par with the threshold for capital construction. Mr. Chair, the resolution is on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Banks.
Mr. Calcado reviewed capital projects that were underway when the COVID emergency commenced and are now either at or near completion, including the Bush Livingston Cogeneration Plant upgrade, the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services, the Barbara and Gary Rodkin Academic Success Center, all at Rutgers University, New Brunswick, and the John Cotton Dana Library addition and renovation at Rutgers University, Newark. Mr. Moore discussed the fiscal year 2021 financial report and incorporated a year-end forecast using financial performance from the first 6 months of the fiscal year. The university is facing a better financial picture than projected earlier, thanks to improved revenues in education and healthcare, along with cost containment, thanks to the measures taken last year. Mr. Moore continued with a review of the expense categories that showed that each category below the level of expenditures experienced in the prior 3 fiscal years. Each of the chief financial officers of the Chancellor-led units presented an overview of year-end projections for her or his unit. Mr. William Troy, Executive Director of Risk Management and Insurance, gave an annual overview of the university's various insurance programs. There is an extensive structure for insurance risks at the university, and there are a variety of challenges for renewal of these policies in the markets. So for instance, the general liability market may result in premium increases of 30% or more with more limited coverage. This is the result of adverse experiences, mostly in overall markets during the past few years for liability, property, trustees and officers, employment, liability, and workers' compensation. Other key insurance areas include data, cybersecurity, fine arts, environmental impairment, and Marine. And finally, Ms. Michelle Noren, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer, provided an update on cybersecurity and its impacts on Rutgers. Ms. Noren provided industry predictions and trends, impacts to higher education and Rutgers specifically, and what the Office of Information Technology is doing to address those risks. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Thank you very much. Ms. Taylor, the report of the Committee on Audit, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Committee on Audit met virtually via Zoom on Thursday, March 4th, 2021 from 9 to 11:30 a.m. Ms. Shelley Massey, KPMG Lead Partner, and Ms. Lawrence Weigard, KPMG Senior Manager, briefed the committee on the status of the Federal Single Audit and the State of New Jersey Single Audit for the year ended June 30th, 2020. Ms. Massey also reported that the Independent Auditor's Report on the financial statements of the university for the year ended June 30th, 2020 had been issued since the last committee meeting. The Single Audit Report for the year ended June 30, 2020, as well as auditor reports on supplementary information and agreed upon procedures are expected to be issued and were issued by March 31st, 2020. Mr. Kim Yozgat, Chief Healthcare Risk Officer, provided an overview of the Rutgers Biomedical and Health Sciences Medical Malpractice Program, including a brief history, current levels of coverage, renewal challenges, recent claim activity, and loss prevention activities. Ms. Michelle Noren, Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer, provided an update on cybersecurity and its impact on Rutgers, the same report Mr. Banks referred to in his Finance and Facilities report. Mr. Eugene Simon, Associate Vice President and Deputy Chief Enterprise Risk Management Ethics and Compliance Officer, provided an update on the risk assessment process and discussed the office's risk assessment methodology, partner with management to remediate risks, and implementation of a monitoring process. Ms. Ruth Philo, Chief Audit Executive, informed the committee on updates to the 2021 annual plan to maximize audit efficiencies with available resources. Ms. Philo also discussed personnel changes, audits in progress, and the implementation status of recommendations for past audits. I have one matter for action, Mr. Chair. Mr. Michael J. Gower, Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, and Treasurer, presented the proposed resolution reappointing KPMG as the university's external auditors and engaging KPMG to perform audit services for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021, and proposed audit services and fees for the engagement letter for the June 30th, 2021 examination. The committee unanimously endorsed the resolution for the approval of the Board of Governors at its April 14th, 2021 meeting. Mr. Chair, this resolution is on the consent agenda. The committee then met in private session with Dr. Fournier, Mr. John J. Hoffman, General Counsel, and Mr. Simon. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Please, may we have from Ms. Towers, the report of the Committee on Health Affairs.
Good afternoon. The Committee on Health Affairs met on March 24th in a virtual meeting. We began the meeting with Dr. Frank Ganassi, President and Chief Executive Officer of the University Behavioral Health Care and the University Correctional Health Care System, citing two matters that required the committee's endorsement to move forward for the Board of Governors approval. The first were the minutes of the University Behavioral Healthcare Leadership Committee meeting on December 15th and also January 19th. And secondly, the University Behavioral Healthcare staff appointments, reappointments, and clinical privileges, also of January 19th and February 16th. These two matters were both endorsed by the committee and will be moved under the consent agenda later today. Second, Dr. Ganassi continued by providing us with an update on the vaccine rollout across UBHC and UCHC, and noted that UBHC is running at approximately 62% acceptance rate and trying to increase that number through community-based efforts. Dr. Ganassi also discussed patient length of stay and noted that it had been steady throughout the pandemic. Dr. Ganassi stated that UBHC is very close to adding an additional 19 acute involuntary beds on the Piscataway campus, which are in very high demand throughout the state, and that UBHC is working very closely with the Newark Public Schools by opening new partial hospitalization programs for youth in response to a request from these schools. He also explained that the new programs at UBHC are coming online, including Brant Behavioral Health Treatment Center and residents and also a program involving transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is an alternative procedure for depression. Finally, Dr. Ganassi stated that the Behavioral Health Training Institute at UBHC has broken records in December and January by training more than 5,000 individuals. And he explained that UBHC has opened 6 new and planned intensive outpatient programs. The committee was then addressed by Dr. Martin Blazer, Director of the Center for Advanced Biotechnology and Medicine, who presented on the work being done at CABM. Dr. Blazer explained the use of antibiotics and the consequences of their overuse. He then reviewed numerous studies that highlighted the drastic variation in the prescription of antibiotics among healthcare practitioners and explained that the CDC estimated that approximately 1/3 of all antibiotics administered in the United States are unnecessary. Dr. Blazer focused on one specific aspect of these consequences, which was the antibiotic exposure in early life and subsequent disease risk for solutions, including the control of the use of antibiotics and restoration of the microbiome. He then reviewed his aspirations that at some point in the future, babies will be examined upon birth to ensure that they have all the global and personal microbes that they should, and if not, science would have the capacity to develop targeted probiotics that can help restore a healthy microbiome. Finally, Dr. Blazer discussed the formation of the Rutgers University Microbiome Program and reviewed the pillars and functions of this program. Next, Dr. Brian Strom, Chancellor for Rutgers Biomedical and Health Services and Executive Vice President for Health Affairs, provided the committee an overview and progress report for RBHS, reviewed recent leadership appointments, and also provided an overview of NIH funding. Chancellor Strom then discussed new rapid tests being developed at the Public Health Research Institute for COVID-19 and variants that are emerging, as well as new vaccine delivery strategies that are being developed by the Cancer Institute of New Jersey. Chancellor Strom further provided an overview of the ad campaign with Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas, commemorating 1 year of collaboration in the fight against COVID-19. He also discussed the marked increases in applications to RBHS schools year over year and reviewed the RBHS Physical Master Plan. Chancellor Strom then moved on to the pandemic, reviewing risk levels by country, then within the United States, also within New Jersey. He also reviewed case numbers globally, locally, including daily trends and confirmed cases, hospitalizations, and deaths in New Jersey. Chancellor Strom finally presented COVID-19 data specific to Rutgers, including the positivity rate and contact tracing efficacy. Chancellor Strom concluded his report by reviewing the fiscal year 2021 goals. We received a financial update from Ms. Kathleen Bramwell, which updated the committee on the budget. She also provided a fiscal year 21 forecast, including a review of RBHS overall performance, as well as variance explanations. Finally, Dr. Vince Gracias, Senior Vice Chancellor for Clinical Affairs and Vice President for Health Affairs, updated the Committee on Rutgers Health. Dr. Gracias began with an overview of the COVID-19 vaccination planning program and reviewed the vaccination site planning at Rutgers. Dr. Gracias also discussed the Rutgers COVID-19 portal and interest questionnaire, as well as demographics eligible for vaccination as defined by the New Jersey Department of Health. Dr. Gracias then moved on to an overview of the graduate medical education program and provided an overview of the health education management system. Dr. Gracias reviewed the goals of the system, elaborated on the glossary developed to standardize clinical education terminology across all RBHS health education units, and discuss the timeline and reporting dimensions of this system. Dr. Gracias concluded his report with a review of key performance indicators on the Rutgers Health Group dashboard. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Towers. Thank you very much. Mr. Brown, over to you for the Committee on Intercollegiate Athletics, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met twice since the last Board of Governors meeting. On March 15th, we met for 45 minutes virtually with a discussion with men's basketball coach Steve Peichel. I opened the meeting by congratulating the Rutgers men's basketball team on their selection to the NCAA tournament, breaking a 30-year drought, which was the longest Power 5 team drought in the nation. Mr. Pat Hobbs, Director of Intercollegiate Athletics for Rutgers University, New Brunswick, added that if last year was not cut short, this actually would have been the second NCAA tournament selection. He also praised the players' academic achievements. The committee then heard from men's basketball head coach Steve Peichel, who stated how lucky he was to have such an amazing group of student athletes and emphasized the team's academic achievements, as well as the fact that the entire team maintains a GPA of 3.0 or better. Coach Peichel then discussed his journey since he became the head basketball coach and his vision for the program. He also discussed the impacts of COVID-19, including the cancellation at the end of last season and its impact on the team this year. He highlighted the fact that Rutgers was the only team in the Big Ten Conference that had no pauses or game cancellations, and the sacrifices that the players had to make to achieve that. He then called on Mr. Miles Johnson, a member of the men's basketball team, to say a few words. Mr. Johnson discussed his experience moving across the country to come to the university and the amazing experience he had at Rutgers, both academically and athletically. He expressed pride that the group of student athletes he joined, he expressed that the group of student athletes he joined the team would finally express that the goal they had to set out to achieve. I thank Coach Peichel for his infectious enthusiasm, and Mr. Hobbs closed the meeting by recognizing the historic achievements of the team, regardless of the outcome of the next game, although the team went on to win a game against Clemson, breaking a 38-year-old drought in that regard. And the meeting ended at 4:45. We then also met this morning for just under a half hour. Mr. Hobbs reviewed proposed employment contracts for 2 assistant football coaches, and the committee endorsed both contracts. Mr. Hobbs also reviewed the terms of a proposed contract extension for Coach Vivian Stringer, head women's basketball coach, with the committee. He detailed Coach Stringer's long and storied coaching career and her success since joining Rutgers. He specifically highlighted Coach Stringer's success since the university joined the Big Ten, as the women's basketball team finished in the top 3 of the conference in 2 of the last 3 seasons. He explained that Coach Stringer's contract was set to expire on June 30th of this year and that the university would like to extend her contract. He then reviewed the terms of the contract extension with the committee, and the committee endorsed that item for review by the Board of Governors Executive Committee, and we adjourned a few minutes before 11 a.m. this morning. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you very much. Mr. Best, over to you for the consent agenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there any items that the members want to remove from the consent agenda? Upon recommendation of the Executive Committee, Committee on Academic and Student Affairs, Committee on Audit, Committee on Finance and Facilities, and Committee on Health Affairs, I move that the board approve the items contained in the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Best. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The consent agenda and all of his resolutions are approved. Thank you very much. Mr. Gower, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to give the report on the Joint Committee on Investments. The Joint Committee on Investments met twice via Zoom since the last regular meeting of this board. First met on March the 5th, at which time it did a regular review of asset allocation targets and chose to make no changes in those targets. I did make a recommendation or accept a recommendation to change one benchmark for a particular strategy, and then approved 3 new commitments to private equity funds. It then considered and approved 5 rebalancing actions within the investment pool, and then subsequently reviewed up-to-date performance. I should note that as of December 31st, 2020, the long-term investment pool has performed well, returning 9.1%, 7.4%, and 8.9% on 1, 3, and 5-year basis, respectively. Finally, Brian Ballantyne, Senior Vice President for Strategy, reviewed the process and recommendations from the Divestment Committee on Fossil Fuels. After a thorough discussion amongst the staff and the JCOI members, the JCOI endorsed the recommendation that was made by that committee, and that recommendation came to the 2 boards on March the 9th and was approved. Finally, Chief Investment Officer Jason McDonald reviewed the Endowment Office's FY21 current budget and discussed the proposed budget for fiscal year 22. As the conclusion of that meeting, JCOI then met again on March the 25th, when it considered 4 manager recommendations and endorsed those. All these recommendations are identified in the meeting materials that you have in the board portal. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Gower. Mr. Oliver, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The University Senate is nearing the end of the academic year and has received, since our last report in February, my last report to you, has received 8 reports, 6 voted on and approved by the full Senate, 2 in process because they come before the Senate twice since they impact both Senate and university policies. These 2 reports will be voted on at the Senate's final meeting of this academic year on April 30th. The resolutions already voted on have been transmitted in our advisory capacity to President Holloway. Each report can be found on the Senate website, or if anyone prefers, I'm happy to send them to you directly. These reports include a report on the review of a proposed resolution on the Rutgers Faculty Council's inclusion in the University Policy Library, a report on normal teaching loads, a report on the honorary degree and commencement speaker selection process, a report on grade inflation, a report on the reevaluation of the student fee consolidation, a report on PTL health and wellness, and the 2 pending reports are a report on student governance and a report on standing committees in the chair of the Senate. Each report and ultimately the president's response are found on the Senate website. And again, I can provide those to you if you like. In addition, there are 18 active charges now under consideration by committee, and I will gladly report on those upon the Senate's disposition of them. I'm also delighted that at this last meeting of the Senate this academic year, we will hear from President Holloway and Dr. Deborah Gray White on the Scarlet and Black Project. I will be very excited to welcome them to the Senate and hear this important presentation. Lastly, we have in fact 2 Senate meetings on April 30th. The Senate meeting in the morning is the organizational meeting of the 2021-22 Senate. This meeting exists to elect next year's Senate leadership. I will report on those results when I next address you. And this concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Before I turn the floor over to President Holloway, is there any member of the board who wishes to say anything about anything? Hearing none, President Holloway, it's always a mistake to spike the ball on the 1 yard line, as you know, and it's certainly a mistake to spike the ball on the other team's 10-yard line. But your leadership through this tremendously difficult period has been palpable, is welcomed by this board and all its members, And we wish you Godspeed. Please, sir, may we have some more? Over to you for the last word.
Well, with such a complimentary commentary as that, it's unwise for me to say anything beyond I'm only as good as the team around me and the team above me. Thank you very much.
May I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
we are adjourned. Be well.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.